There's a classic saying that people have often derided and chided, which it goes, if you can't accept me at my worst, then you don't deserve me at my best. And there's a lot of reasons why that thinking is flawed. But the main idea of it is to ask that you don't judge a person based off of what is potentially rock bottom or what is potentially sky high for them. You should judge them more so in the middle. So really, though that saying is not usually used by people who are completely rational about where their best and worst is, it is something to be thought about in terms of the bigger idea, the bigger picture of judging someone. And here on Don't Judge Me, FKA Twigs, Headie 1, and Fred again discuss this over a neat little song. Now, Don't Judge Me features a very ethereal beat that at first seems innocuous at best. There's a deep bass drum that kind of just carries us along, and as that beat gets deeper and deeper, and FK Twigs sort of pleads with the listener to not judge them, that is when it starts to become a little more distorted. There's hints of little staticky sounds and noises that eventually become more than a little sort of eerie noise in the background, and they fully flesh this out when it explodes into a more condensed, not a condensed format, but it explodes into a very furious beat as FKA becomes more and more paranoid as Headie One sort of discusses how racism has affected him and how it as a whole makes everything feel more and more scary. So they look at judgment in terms of as a form of disrespect, a form of condensing someone to certain things about them, certain qualities or certain features that don't allow them to be fully looked at as a person. And so judgment is something that is inherently fatal and dangerous depending on the people in power that wield it and how they wield it. There is a lot to be said for certain actions that are done, but racism is a form of judgment that is completely and utterly should be disregarded. It shouldn't be a thing that should be allowed to exist, and yet it is, and it's unfortunate due to the fact that it inherently harms people from generation to generation. And Headie One is simply just like showing and showing how that amplifies paranoia, how it amplifies certain fear, how it amplifies frustration, and how being put in certain situations outside of racism also it looks at this question because in a way like FK sort of serves as a mantra on the song, like don't judge me, constantly asking this, and they present other situations, not just racism. That is one thing. It's sort of but a microcosm of other judgments could be sort of, I've been put in this situation, and though you don't know all the facts, please don't judge me on this. You know, Headie One sort of hints at the fact that he had to get a gun when he was like 17, and how that was a different stress because suddenly people that he trusted were now enemies, were now people that he could not regard in the same light. And so when judgment comes from everywhere, we're always kind of in a tenuous state where nothing seems true, nothing seems like it has integrity, but depending on the position you're in, depending on the facts, depending on the context, everything that is judged is usually judged by a person who is imperfect. And so this could result in a fatal situation, or it could result in a mistrust. And so you have relationships and other things that can be adversely affected by judgment. And I think the instrumental does a great job of putting that picture together of how everyone is so fearful and how judgment can cause so much fear. And ultimately, it's not that judgment is always bad. It's good to be like when people say you're a good judge of character, what they mean is that you're able to tell how like you are able to look at certain telltale signs whether or not someone's a good person or not. But it's important for me, what I think is important when it comes to judgment is looking at the history and the context of the person. And what Headie one is getting at is that racism doesn't do that. Racism says, oh, you're this, so you must do this. And that is where judgment gets fatal. That's where it gets abusive. That's where it gets destructive. And that kind of judgment should be eradicated. Racism should be disregarded. And when I say that, what I mean is, if someone's being a racist jackass, they should be disregarded. Their opinion should not matter, and they shouldn't have any power. And in terms of judgment, usually it should come from a place of, I want you to do better, or I see this for you. But the way this judgment through this song is portrayed is in these dangerous forms of this dangerous light, this potentially adversarial light, where people are being made out to be something villainous, something harmful, something evil, and that is not what black people are. They are not inherently destructive or inherently evil. They are not. Black people are beautiful. Black people are wonderful. And if you're racist, you can fuck off. But all in all, good song. Really, really, and I enjoyed the characteristics of the song, and I liked how it evolved throughout. I'm assuming that the guy Fred again, I'm guessing he's the producer. It was a little bit weird when Headie one was kind of, it felt more like he was talking. I don't know if that's the style. Like he sort of started flowing, but it was more like, even in the beginning of the song, he sort of starts it off with narration and asks the thing, like, don't judge me for this. Don't look at me with a certain way because of how harmful that feels when someone judges you. It does feel harmful. But he sort of kind of just narrated. It felt like FKA was doing more of the music singing thing. And again, that could be me not understanding how rappers from the UK operate, because admittedly I haven't listened to a lot of them. But it felt more like this was a story, and FKA was the singer behind the story, while Headie one was just simply kind of talking about the story. And I could be 100% wrong. But I did enjoy it for what it was trying to get across, or at least for the message that made itself apparent to me when I listened to this. Could be wrong, but I did like it. I think it's cool. It's always, FKA Twigs is always a fun hit, because her music always feels like it's coming from like a different dimension, but yet it's also grounded in certain key emotional things. So yeah, it was a neat song. I feel like, as far as playing it all the time, I don't know if I'd do it a lot, but I liked it. I think it was cool. So please, don't judge me. Well, this guy says, I'm not a fan of any of those judge shows. Like, I don't, I've never been interested in it. However, you're lying to yourself if you have never wanted to just slam a gavel down and be like, order in the court. Order in the court. It's the coolest thing ever. But yeah, don't judge me. I do not need to be a judge. Yeah. Order in the court.